Millionaire comes home and finds his pregnant wife crying. What he discovered shocked him. The Bentley's engine had barely stopped purring when James heard it, the sound that would cost him everything he'd built and give him everything he'd lost. His pregnant wife crying like her heart was breaking, because it was. Hello, family. Welcome to my channel. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please click that subscribe button. Like and share this story with someone who would to listen to this kind of uplifting story. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and how this touched you. The Bentley's engine purred to silence in the circular driveway, but James Whitmore didn't move. His hands remained on the steering wheel, knuckles white against Italian leather, as he stared at his estate through the windshield. 7 bedrooms, infinity pool, private tennis court, everything his father never had. Everything that was supposed to mean something. His phone buzzed. Singapore deal closed. Another $3 million. He felt nothing. The October wind scattered golden leaves across marble steps as he finally emerged. Custom suit impeccable despite the 14-hour flight. The house loomed before him. Not home, just headquarters. He'd been gone 3 weeks this time. Or was it 4? The days blurred together in conference rooms and first-class cabins. Inside, silence greeted him. Not peaceful silence, the expensive kind. The kind that cost $2 million and came with vaulted ceilings that swallowed sound, Persian rugs that muffled footsteps, and rooms so vast that voices got lost searching for walls to bounce against. Lily. His voice cracked from disuse. When had he last spoken to someone who wasn't negotiating a contract? No answer. He set his briefcase on the marble console, the one Lily had chosen, something about Carrara, though he'd been checking emails during that conversation. His reflection caught in the gilded mirror above it. 35 years old, silver threading through dark hair, eyes that closed deals but couldn't seem to see what mattered. The kitchen sprawled empty, its professional-grade appliances gleaming like museum pieces. A note on the Sub-Zero, dinner in the warming drawer. Don't wait up. L. Her handwriting used to include hearts. James loosened his tie, the silk slipping through his fingers like everything else in his life. Expensive, smooth, ultimately meaningless. He thought of his father, dying in that cramped apartment in Queens, surrounded by past-due notices and broken promises. Make something of yourself, Jamie. Don't end up like me. Well, he'd made something all right. Made millions. Made headlines. Made himself indispensable to boards and brokers. Made himself a stranger in his own home. 3 floors up, Lily Whitmore sat in what the realtor had called the nursery suite. A room bigger than most apartments, painted the softest shade of seafoam. Her hand rested on her 7-month bump as she stared at the ultrasound photo in her other hand. A boy. Their son. She wondered if James even remembered. The rocking chair, hand-carved teak from that boutique in Soho, creaked gently as she swayed. Everything in this room was perfect. The crib from Italy. The changing table from Denmark. The mobile of sterling silver stars that would spin above their baby's dreams. All chosen alone. Her phone sat dark on the side table. No missed calls. He'd landed hours ago, she'd tracked the flight. Once upon a time, he'd have called from the tarmac, eager to hear her voice. Now she tracked him like weather patterns, a storm that passed through occasionally but never stayed. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she didn't bother wiping it away. What was the point? The baby kicked, a flutter punch against her ribs, and she almost smiled. I know, little one. You want to meet your daddy too. The irony wasn't lost on her. Sitting in a mansion, wearing a dress that cost more than most monthly salaries, crying because she was lonely. Poor little rich wife. She could hear her mother's voice. You wanted the fairy tale, Lily. Prince Charming and his castle. But fairy tales didn't mention how cold castles got. How princes could vanish for weeks, leaving you to rule an empty kingdom. How you could have everything and nothing at the same time. She stood, one hand supporting her back, and walked to the window. Below, the Bentley sat in the driveway like a sleeping beast. He was home. The word felt foreign. Could you call it home when someone just passed through? Her reflection caught in the window. 29, beautiful in that expensive way money bought. Highlighted hair, prenatal yoga figure, designer maternity wear. The perfect millionaire's wife. Except for the tears. She pressed her palm against the glass, watching her breath fog the surface. Once, she'd have raced downstairs at the sound of his car. Once, he'd have bounded up to find her. Once, they'd been James and Lily who happened to have money, not the millionaire and his wife who happened to have names. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Soon, she'd have someone who'd stay. Someone who'd need her for more than managing household staff and looking appropriate at galas. Someone who'd love her for showing up, not showing off. If only his father could learn the same lesson. She heard footsteps on the stairs, expensive shoes on imported wood. He was coming up. Her heart, that traitorous organ, still skipped. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time he'd see her. Maybe this time he'd stay. Have you ever felt rich in all the wrong ways? When did success start costing more than it gave? Share your story with us in the comments below. James climbed the stairs slowly, each step a negotiation with exhaustion. The Singapore presentation played on loop in his mind. Profit margins, expansion strategies, the board's standing ovation. Victory should taste sweeter than this metallic emptiness on his tongue. The master bedroom door stood ajar, lamplight spilling into the hallway like honey. He pushed it open, already rehearsing his entrance. Sorry about the delay, deal ran long, you know how it is. But the words died in his throat. Lily stood by the window, her back to him, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Her palm pressed against the glass as if trying to push through to somewhere else, anywhere else. The seafoam dress he'd never seen before clung to her pregnant form, and something about the way the fabric moved with her breathing made his chest constrict. Lily! She stiffened but didn't turn. In the window's reflection, he saw her face. Devastated, raw, nothing like the composed smile she wore at charity functions. Mascara traced dark rivers down cheeks he hadn't kissed in weeks. You're home. Her voice came out broken, like she'd been practicing being okay and failed. What's wrong? Is it the baby? Should I call Dr. Morrison? He stepped forward, phone already in hand, ready to solve this like a business crisis. She laughed, a sound like glass breaking. The baby's fine, James. Perfect, actually. Strong heartbeat, right on track. 26 weeks and 3 days. Her hand moved to her bump. But you wouldn't know that. What? Finally, she turned. The lamplight caught her face, and James felt the ground shift. This wasn't his wife, not the polished, patient Lily who understood his schedule. This was someone drowning in their own home. Do you know what today is? His mind raced through possibilities. Not her birthday, that was March. Not their anniversary, definitely June. Tuesday. Fresh tears spilled over. It's October 15th. The day we were supposed to find out the gender together. The appointment you promised, you wouldn't miss. The memory hit like cold water. 3 months ago, marking his calendar, kissing her forehead, swearing this one mattered. Lily, it's a boy. The words came out fierce and broken simultaneously. Your son. And I sat in that office alone, watching other couples hold hands while I held my phone, waiting for a call that never came. The Singapore deal. There's always a deal. The dam burst completely. Tokyo, London, Singapore. I can't compete with continents, James. I'm just the woman growing your child in a house that echoes because you're never here to fill it with your voice. She sank onto the bed's edge, hands cradling her belly as sobs shook her entire frame. I used to be so proud when you'd close another $1 million contract. Now I realize each deal costs more than money. It costs us minutes, hours, days we'll never get back. James stood frozen, his phone still clutched uselessly. In boardrooms, he commanded attention, bent negotiations to his will. Here, watching his wife fall apart, he was powerless. "Do you know what I did after the appointment?" Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I went to buy baby. Alone. Surrounded by couples debating stroller features and crib colors, and I couldn't even remember what your favorite color is anymore." "Blue," he said automatically. "Navy blue." She looked up, eyes swimming. "It's green, James. Forest green. You told me on our second date, said it reminded you of Central Park in summer, the only place your dad could afford to take you that felt rich." The mention of his father made something crack inside him. All those promises to be different, to be better, to provide everything, and he'd provided everything but himself. "I bought a onesie." Lily pulled something from beside her, tiny fabric that said, "Daddy's Boy" in silver letters. "The saleswoman asked if my husband would like it. I said yes, even though I don't know if you want any of this anymore." "If you want us." "Of course I want. Do you?" She stood abruptly, swaying slightly. "Because wanting requires presence, James. It requires showing up for more than signatures and stock options. Our son won't care about your portfolio. He'll care about piggyback rides and bedtime stories and whether Daddy makes it to Little League games." The onesie slipped from her fingers, landing between them like a challenge. Such a small thing, but it held an entire future. First steps, scraped knees, graduation caps. Moments he was already missing. "I grew up with nothing," he said, the words scraping his throat. "Watching my dad count pennies, seeing my mom water down soup to make it last. I swore. You swore you'd be different." Lily's voice gentled but didn't soften. "But you became the opposite extreme. He was absent because he had nothing. You're absent because you have everything. The result is the same, a child wondering why Daddy isn't there." The truth of it hit harder than any hostile takeover. He'd spent so long running from his father's poverty that he'd sprinted straight into a different kind of bankruptcy. Lily picked up the ultrasound photo from the nightstand, holding it out to him. "Meet your son, James. He has your nose already. Strong profile," the technician said. "I cried when I saw it because he looks like you, and I'm terrified he'll grow up only knowing you from pictures too." James took the photo with trembling hands. The grainy image showed a perfect profile. His nose, definitely, but something about the mouth that was pure Lily. Real. Alive. Waiting. His son. Who would enter a world where his father was a signature on contracts, a name on buildings, a stranger in a suit. "Unless. I'm sorry." The words felt inadequate, pennies thrown at a debt worth millions. "I'm so fucking sorry, Lily." She stood there, beautiful and broken, carrying their future while he'd been chasing ghosts of his past. The space between them felt like continents, all those miles he'd flown away from what mattered. "Sorry doesn't change anything," she whispered. "I need you to choose, James. Your son and I, or your empire. Because I can't do this alone anymore. I won't." The ultrasound trembled in his grip. 26 weeks and 3 days. He'd already missed so much. But maybe, not everything. James stared at the ultrasound until the image blurred. His mind, trained to find exits in impossible negotiations, scrambled for familiar ground. "I'll cancel the Tokyo trip next week." "We can." "No." Lily wrapped her arms around herself, creating a barrier he recognized from countless fights that ended in silence. "Don't you dare make promises right now. Not when you smell like airplane cabin and your eyes are already calculating what this conversation is costing you." She was right. Even now, part of him tracked time zones. Tokyo would be waking up, emails piling up, the Nakamura deal hanging by a thread. He hated that she was right. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted, then immediately retreated. "But I know how to provide. That's what I'm good at. Making sure you never have to worry about." About anything except whether my husband remembers I exist? She moved to the dresser, pulling out pajamas with mechanical precision. I'm going to sleep in the guest room. Lily, please. Let's talk about this rationally. She whirled on him. Rationally? You want spreadsheets for loneliness? Quarterly reports on a marriage? Fine. Asset. One husband. Liability. Never present. Net worth. Declining daily. That's not fair. Fair. Her laugh could have cut glass. Fair is couples who argue about loading the dishwasher, not whether their spouse will make it to their child's birth. James felt his defenses rising, those old walls built from years of proving himself. Everything I do is for this family. Every deal, every trip, every excuse. She yanked open the dresser drawer. You know what? You're right. Stay exactly as you are. Our son will have the best of everything money can buy. Private schools, trust funds, a father who's a LinkedIn success story. Why are you being like this? Because I'm tired, James. The drawer slammed shut. Tired of being grateful for scraps. Tired of explaining to my mother why you missed another Sunday dinner. Tired of sleeping diagonal in a king-sized bed because I've forgotten what sharing it feels like. He set the ultrasound carefully on the nightstand, as if it might shatter. I'll hire more help. A full-time nanny, someone to raise your son while you're raising capital? She clutched the pajamas against her chest. Perfect. He can call her Mama and you Mr. Whitmore. Stop. The word came out harsher than intended. You think I want this? You think I enjoy living in airports? I think you don't know how to stop. Her voice dropped, exhausted. I think you're so scared of being your father that you can't see you're becoming something worse, a ghost with a Goldman Sachs account. The mention of his father made him step back. I'm nothing like him. You're right. He was there. Broke. Desperate, but there. You're just pixels on a screen. A voice on conference calls. A signature on checks. James felt the familiar itch to check his phone, to retreat into problems he could solve with money and strategy. His hand actually twitched toward his pocket before he caught himself. Lily saw it. Of course she did. Go ahead, she said quietly. Check it. I'm sure something needs your immediate attention. Something more important than your pregnant wife having a breakdown. That's not. 3 months ago, I started timing you. Want to know your average? She didn't wait for an answer. 17 minutes. That's how long you can go without looking at a screen when you're home. 17 minutes of presence before you disappear into deals and data. The number hung between them like a verdict. He wanted to dispute it, but his phone buzzed in his pocket, and his fingers moved involuntarily toward it. See. Tears fresh on her cheeks. You can't even help it anymore. It might be Tokyo. It's always Tokyo. Or London. Or Singapore. She moved toward the door. You've built an empire, James. Congratulations. Enjoy ruling it alone. Where are you going? Guest room. Where I've been sleeping anyway when you're gone. At least there I don't wake up reaching for someone who's in another time zone. He should follow her. Should drop to his knees, beg forgiveness, promise change. Instead, he stood rooted, the businessman in him calculating angles. Maybe if he gave her space tonight, approached it fresh in the morning. Maybe if he cleared his schedule for the weekend. Maybe if... You're doing it again, she said from the doorway. I can see you strategizing. But I'm not a merger, James. Your son isn't a commodity. And love isn't a market you can corner. I know that. Do you? She looked back, and for a moment he saw the girl he'd married, the one who'd laughed at his jokes in that coffee shop, who'd believed his promises about building a life together. Because from where I'm standing, you've leveraged everything that mattered for returns that leave you empty. The door closed with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot. James stood in their bedroom, his bedroom now, surrounded by evidence of a life he'd paid for but hadn't lived. The California king stretched before him, big enough for the distance they'd grown. Designer curtains blocked out the world he'd spent so much time conquering. His phone buzzed again. Tokyo. Definitely Tokyo. He pulled it out, thumb hovering over the screen. 17 minutes. Was that really all he gave her? All he gave them? The ultrasound caught his eye. His son's profile, waiting to be known. Waiting for a father who could measure love in something other than wire transfers. But Tokyo was waiting too. The Nakamura deal hung in the balance. $40 million, 2 years of negotiation. His team needed answers. The board expected results. He looked from phone to photo, paralyzed between two worlds. In one, he was James Whitmore, millionaire dealmaker, master of markets. In the other, he was just James, husband to a heartbroken wife, father to an unborn son. The phone buzzed insistently. 17 minutes. He'd already wasted 5. The crash came at 3:47 a.m. James bolted upright in the empty bed, Tokyo emails still glowing on his laptop screen. He'd fallen asleep strategizing, solving problems an ocean away while ignoring the crisis in his own home. Lily! He was running before his brain fully engaged, bare feet slapping against cold marble. The sound had come from downstairs. Glass breaking, something heavy falling. He found her in the kitchen, surrounded by shattered crystal, one hand gripping the counter while the other pressed against her belly. Her face was pale as moonlight, eyes wide with pain. "I just wanted water," she gasped. "But the cramp. Oh God, James, something's wrong." The Waterford glasses, wedding gifts, lay in pieces around her bare feet. But all he saw was the fear in her eyes, the way she hunched forward like she was protecting their son from some invisible threat. "Don't move." He was already crunching through glass, not feeling the cuts. "I've got you. I can't, the pain." He lifted her easily, her pregnant weight nothing compared to the terror of losing them. Her arms went around his neck automatically, muscle memory from better times. "The hospital bag," she whispered against his shoulder. "In the nursery closet. I packed it last week. Alone." Even now, she couldn't help the dig. But he felt her trembling and pushed aside his defensive reflex. "I'll get it. Let me put you in the car first." "No." Her fingers dug into his shirt. "Don't leave me. Please. Not now." The raw need in her voice undid him. When had she stopped asking him to stay? When had she learned to expect abandonment? "I'm here," he said, meaning it for the first time in months. "I'm not going anywhere." He carried her to the garage, settling her carefully in the Bentley's passenger seat. She was breathing in short pants, the Lamaze technique she'd learned from videos because he'd missed the classes. "The bag." "Forget the bag." He was already backing out, one hand on the wheel, the other holding hers. "We'll buy whatever you need. With money." She half laughed, half sobbed. "Your solution to everything?" "With time," he corrected, squeezing her fingers. "All the time you need. I'm calling Yamamoto right now, telling him the deal's off." "Don't." She closed her eyes through another wave of pain. "Don't make promises in crisis you'll regret in calm." But he was already voice dialing, switching to speaker so she could hear. It was 4 p.m. in Tokyo, perfect timing for once. "Whitmore-san," Yamamoto's voice filled the car. "We've been waiting for your response on the revised terms." "The deal's off," James said, taking the turn towards Cedars-Sinai faster than legal. "Family emergency. I'm out." Silence. Then, "Whitmore-san, this is $40 million. I know exactly what it is." He glanced at Lily, whose eyes had opened in shock. "It's not enough. Not anymore." He hung up before Yamamoto could respond, tossing his phone into the back seat like the expensive anchor it was. "James, Lily breathed. You just made my first good decision in years. Another contraction hit her, and she squeezed his hand hard enough to hurt. Breathe, baby, like the videos showed. You watched the videos? Last night, after you left, he pulled into the emergency entrance. All of them. Did you know our son is the size of a cauliflower right now? That he can hear us talking. She was crying again, but differently. You watched them. Should have watched them with you. He threw the car into park, not caring about the valet. Should have done a lot of things with you. The next hour blurred, wheelchairs and forms, monitors and medical terms. But through it all, he never let go of her hand. Not when they hooked up the fetal monitor. Not when the doctor examined her. Not when she squeezed hard enough to crack his knuckles during contractions. Braxton Hicks, Dr. Morrison finally announced. Practice contractions. Baby's fine, but you're dehydrated and stressed. We'll keep you overnight for monitoring. The relief nearly buckled his knees. Lily sagged against the pillows, exhaustion painting shadows under her eyes. You can go now, she said quietly once they were alone. I'm sure Tokyo's calling. He pulled the visitor's chair close to her bed. Let them call. James. Do you know what I realized at 3:47 this morning? He kept his voice soft, matching the rhythm of the fetal monitor. When I heard that crash, I didn't think about the Singapore deal I'd closed or the Tokyo money I was losing. I thought about losing you, losing him, losing the only real things I've ever had. She turned her face away, but he caught the glimmer of tears. I've been so scared of being poor like my father that I became poor in every way that matters. He touched her belly gently, feeling their son move beneath his palm. He couldn't afford to give us things. I can't afford to give you time. Same empty hands, different excuse. It's not that simple. It is, though. The baby kicked against his hand, strong and sure. Hey there, little man. It's Dad. I know we haven't talked much, but that's changing. Lily's hand covered his on her belly. He's been active tonight. I think he knew something was wrong. Smart kid. Gets that from you. He met her eyes. I'm staying tonight. Tomorrow. Every night you'll let me. Until the next deal. The only deal I care about is this one. He laced their fingers together over their son. You and him. Whatever it takes to close that. She studied his face like a contract she was afraid to sign. I can't do this again, James. I can't watch you disappear. Not with a baby. I'd rather be alone than abandoned. I know. He brought her hand to his lips. But I'm asking you to let me prove it. Here. Now. In this ugly hospital room that costs nothing but time. The monitor beeped steadily, their son's heartbeat strong and constant. Outside, Los Angeles woke up to another day of deals and traffic. His phone was probably exploding in the car. Tokyo was definitely in crisis. But James Whitmore, millionaire dealmaker, sat in an uncomfortable chair holding his wife's hand, learning the value of showing up. One night, Lily whispered. You can stay one night. We'll see about tomorrow. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't fixed. But it was a start. And for the first time in years, he didn't calculate what it might cost him. He already knew it was worth everything. Dawn crept through the hospital blinds, painting everything in soft gold. Lily had finally fallen asleep around 5, her hand still tangled with his. James watched the rise and fall of her chest, the way their son moved beneath the thin hospital gown, and felt like he was seeing them for the first time. His phone had buzzed 17 times from the car. He'd counted. You look terrible, Lily murmured, eyes still closed. Thanks. You look beautiful. She opened one eye. Liar. I look like I've been hit by a truck carrying pregnancy hormones. The most beautiful truck victim I've ever seen. He squeezed her hand. How are you feeling? Like I swallowed a soccer player. She shifted, wincing. He's been doing gymnastics all night. I think he's excited you're here. The simple statement hit harder than any board presentation. His son was excited he was there. When had that stopped being normal? Lily, he started, then stopped. How did you apologize for becoming someone you'd sworn you'd never be? I know what you're going to say. She struggled to sit up, and he helped adjust her pillows. You're sorry. You'll change. This time is different. It is different. Because I almost lost the baby? Because I almost lost you. He ran his thumb across her knuckles. Both of you. And I realized I've been losing you for months, one missed dinner at a time. She was quiet for a long moment, studying their joined hands. Do you remember our first fight? The apartment in Brooklyn. You wanted the one with the garden. And you wanted the one closer to Wall Street. A sad smile played at her lips. You said we could always get plants. I said we could always take the subway. You were right. I was naive. She pulled her hand free, wrapping her arms around her belly. I thought love was enough. That if I just understood your ambition, supported your dreams, you'd eventually choose us over them. I did choose. You chose the idea of us. The concept of a family that would prove you'd made it. Her voice stayed gentle, but the words cut deep. I became a symbol, James. The beautiful wife in the perfect house with the perfect life. But symbols don't need attention. They just need to look good on the mantle. He wanted to argue, but the truth of it sat heavy in his chest. How many times had he introduced her as my wife instead of Lily? How many photos had they taken for business magazines, playing the successful couple? Tell me about your father, she said suddenly. What? Your father. You mention him when you're defending your choices, but you never actually talk about him. She shifted to face him fully. I've been married to you for 3 years, and I know more about your quarterly projections than your childhood. James felt the familiar wall rising, the one that kept his past locked away from his present. There's nothing to tell. He was poor. I'm not. End of story. Beginning of story. Her eyes held that stubborn glint he'd fallen in love with. What was his name? Michael. The word came out reluctantly. What did he do? Construction. When he could find work. James stood, pacing to the window. Look, this isn't. Sit down. Not a request. Please. He sat. What happened to him? Heart attack. I was 15. The words felt rusty from disuse. Massive coronary in our kitchen. I found him when I got home from school. Lily's hand found his again. I'm sorry. Don't be. He was a failure. Couldn't hold a job, couldn't pay bills, couldn't. He stopped, hearing his own cruelty. Couldn't what? Couldn't give us anything. The admission scraped his throat. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. I wore second-hand everything, ate free lunch at school, watched her count pennies for milk money. And he'd sit at that kitchen table with his head in his hands, apologizing for being useless. So you decided to be useful. I decided to be everything he wasn't. James stared at their hands. Rich. Successful. Able to provide. What else was he? What do you mean? Besides poor. What else was your father? She waited, patient as a therapist. James closed his eyes, and suddenly he was 15 again, finding Michael Whitmore slumped over bills he couldn't pay. But other memories surfaced too, ones he'd buried under years of shame. He taught me to play chess, he said quietly. Every Sunday morning, before the world woke up. Said it was the one game where being poor didn't matter, just how you thought. What else? He read to me. Every night until I was 12 and told him I was too old. Voices for all the characters, even the princess parts. A laugh escaped, rusty and surprised. He was terrible at it, but he never missed a night. What else? He was there. The words came out broken. Every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every time I needed him. Broke as hell, but there. Always there. Lily was crying again, but silently this time. And you think being rich makes you better than that? I think being rich means our son won't have to be embarrassed by his father. Your father embarrassed you? Every day. Picking me up in that rusted truck, wearing clothes with holes, counting change at the grocery store while other kids' parents used credit cards. But he picked you up. The simple statement hung between them like a challenge. Yes, Michael Whitmore had picked him up. In the rusted truck, wearing holy clothes, but he'd been there. Every day. Rain or shine. Rich or poor. I haven't picked up anyone in years, James whispered. No, Lily agreed. You send cars, drivers, money, everything except yourself. I thought I was being better. You were being different. Not better. Different. She touched his cheek. Your father gave you time. You give me things. Your father was present. You're profitable. Your father loved you enough to show up. You love us enough to stay away. The truth of it shattered something inside him. He'd spent 20 years running from his father's poverty, only to discover he'd inherited something worse, his absence. Different reasons, same empty chair at the dinner table. I don't know how to be both, he admitted. Successful and present. Rich and there. Maybe, Lily said softly, you start by choosing which one matters more. Their son kicked against her belly, strong and insistent. A boy who would either know his father or know about him. A boy who would either inherit presence or profit. But not both. Not the way James had been living. The choice, he realized, had always been his to make. He just hadn't been brave enough to make it. Until now. Dr. Morrison's morning rounds brought good news. Lily's vitals were stable, the baby was thriving, and they could go home after lunch. But as the doctor left, neither of them moved to start discharge preparations. I don't want to go back to that house, Lily said quietly, watching nurses bustle past their doorway. Not yet. It feels like a museum of all our mistakes. James understood. The mansion would swallow them again. Separate wings, separate schedules, separate lives under the same expensive roof. Here, in this cramped hospital room, they'd found something fragile but real. We could go somewhere else, he offered. The cabin in Tahoe? You mean the cabin you bought but never visit? She raised an eyebrow. The one with the dust covers and empty refrigerator? We could stock it. Together. He pulled his chair closer to her bed. I could teach you to fish. My dad taught me at a pond in Queens. Nothing fancy, just worms and patience. You fish. Used to. Before I decided it was a waste of time. He smiled ruefully. Turns out I decided a lot of good things were wastes of time. Lily shifted, making room on the narrow bed. Show me. What? The fishing. Show me how your dad taught you. James hesitated, then climbed carefully onto the bed beside her, mindful of the monitors. He positioned her hands like she was holding an invisible rod. Okay, so you hold it like this, firm but not tight. Dad always said the fish could feel your tension through the line. His hands covered hers, guiding the motion. Then you cast like this. They went through the motions together, her pregnant belly between them, their son moving restlessly as if he wanted to learn too. What did you talk about? Lily asked. During all that patience? Everything. Nothing. He'd tell me about his day, which walls he'd built, which foreman was giving him trouble. I'd complain about school, about kids who had more than us. James's voice grew softer. He'd listen like my problems were the most important things in the world. When did you stop talking to him? When I got my first job on Wall Street. Suddenly his stories about construction sites seemed small. I was embarrassed by how excited he got over my success. Like he was living through me instead of being proud of his own life. Lily turned in his arms, studying his face. What would he think of all this? The money, the house, the deals. James considered it. He'd be proud. And worried. Worried that I'd forgotten how to be happy with enough. He touched her belly, feeling their son's movements. He used to say the richest man he knew was our neighbor, Mr. Chen. Guy drove a beat-up Honda, lived in a tiny apartment, but every evening he'd sit on his stoop with his wife, drinking tea and watching the sunset. Dad said that was wealth, having someone to watch sunsets with. We have sunsets, Lily murmured. We just never watch them together. We could start. She was quiet for a long moment, then, tell me about the first time you made $1 million. Which time? The very first. When you crossed that line from thousands to millions. James closed his eyes, remembering. The Hartwell acquisition. I was 28, working 18-hour days, living on coffee and ambition. When the deal closed, I called you first. I remember. You were crying. Happy tears. I thought I'd made it. Thought I'd finally become someone worthy of you. He laughed bitterly. I was so naive. You were worthy before the money, James. The money just made you forget that. Their son kicked particularly hard, and they both laughed. He's got strong legs, James said. Soccer player, maybe. Or dancer. Or he could just walk, Lily said. Revolutionary concept. A Whitmore who doesn't run everywhere. Ouch. Truth hurts. But she was smiling. What do you want to teach him? Chess. Fishing. How to tie a tie. James paused. How to be present. How to choose people over profit. What do you want him to know about his father? The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. James thought about legacy, not the financial kind, but the human kind. What stories would their son tell about him? I want him to know I learned, James said finally. That I was lost for a while, but I found my way back. That his mother saved us both by refusing to accept less than we deserved. Lily's eyes filled with tears. James. I want him to know that the day I almost lost you both was the day I found myself. He kissed her forehead. And that every sunset after that, I watched with the people I love. A knock interrupted them. A nurse with discharge papers, the real world creeping back in. But something had shifted in that narrow hospital bed, in the space between confession and forgiveness. One more thing, Lily said as the nurse bustled around them. I want to name him Michael. James's breath caught. After my father? After the man who taught you how to love, even if it took you a while to remember the lesson. Michael James Whitmore, he said, testing the sound. I like it. Michael James Whitmore, who will know his father's voice from bedtime stories, not conference calls. Promise. Don't promise yet, Lily said, but her hand found his. Show me first. One day at a time. As they prepared to leave the hospital, James felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not the aggressive optimism of a deal about to close, but the quiet hope of a man who'd glimpsed what he could become. The mansion waited, but it didn't have to be a museum. It could be a home. If he was brave enough to make it one. What moments in your life have taught you the difference between success and significance? Please share your story with us in the comments below. 3 days. That's how long the fragile peace lasted. James had meant every word in that hospital room. He'd cleared his calendar, ignored 17 calls from Tokyo, and spent Tuesday morning teaching Lily to make his father's pancakes, the only recipe Michael Whitmore had mastered. They'd laughed when she burned the first batch, kissed over coffee that had gone cold while they talked. For 72 hours, he'd remembered what it felt like to be human. Then Wednesday's emergency board meeting shattered everything. "The Nakamura deal is hemorrhaging," Richard Steinberg announced, his voice crackling through the conference room speakers. "They're threatening to pull out entirely." Stock price dropped 12% overnight. James sat in his home office, Lily's laughter drifting up from the kitchen where she was arranging flowers, something she'd started doing again, filling their house with life. The sound felt like a different universe from the crisis exploding through his phone. "How bad?" he asked, though he already knew. "Catastrophic. We're looking at 40 million in losses, plus the ripple effect on the Singapore expansion. The board is concerned about your recent decision-making." Translation: they were questioning his leadership, his judgment, everything he'd built over 15 years. "James." Steinberg's voice sharpened. "Are you there?" "I'm here. We need you in Tokyo. Tonight. Yamamoto will only meet face-to-face, and only with you. This is salvageable, but not remotely." Through the window, James watched Lily in the garden, one hand on her belly as she bent to smell the roses. Their son, Michael, was due in 10 weeks. 10 weeks of moments he'd already promised to be present for. "I can't," he said. "Family obligations." Silence. Then, "James, this is your company. Your reputation. Your legacy. You can't let personal matters." "Personal matters?" The words came out sharper than intended. "My pregnant wife and unborn son are personal matters? Of course not. But this is business. This is what you've worked for your entire career." James closed his eyes, feeling the familiar pull. The board was right. This was his life's work. His father had died broke and forgotten. James had sworn to build something that mattered, something that lasted. But Lily's words echoed. "Your father gave you time. You give me things." "Send Harrison," James said finally. "He can handle Yamamoto. Harrison doesn't have your relationship with them. They specifically requested you." Steinberg's voice carried the weight of ultimatum. "James, if this deal dies, it takes the Singapore expansion with it. We're talking about your position as CEO. The board won't tolerate this level of distraction." Distraction. His family was a distraction. "I need to think about it. Think fast. The plane leaves at midnight." The line went dead. James sat in the silence of his office, surrounded by awards and photos from deal closings. 15 years of building an empire, and it could crumble in a week. Everything his father couldn't give him, security, respect, legacy, hanging by a thread. His phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Dinner in 20 minutes. Made your favorite." His favorite. She'd remembered his favorite meal, probably looked up the recipe, spent the afternoon cooking while he'd been on calls about markets and margins. Another buzz. This time from Harrison. Board's panicking. Stock down another 3%. "Need you in Tokyo or we're all fucked." Then another from Yamamoto himself. "Whitmore-san, we must speak. Honor demands face-to-face resolution." Honor. Legacy. Empire. The words his father never got to claim. James found Lily in the dining room, candles lit, his favorite meal perfectly plated. She'd changed into the blue dress he'd bought her in Paris, back when he still noticed what she wore. "You look beautiful," he said, meaning it. "You look troubled." She studied his face as he sat down. "What happened?" "Nothing. Just work stuff." "James." Her voice carried warning. "We promised honesty." He cut into the steak. "Buying time. How did you explain that everything you'd built was collapsing? That the choice between family and empire wasn't theoretical anymore?" "The Tokyo deal is falling apart," he said finally. "The board wants me on a plane tonight." Lily's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "Tonight. It's complicated. Yamamoto feels disrespected by my pulling out. The whole Singapore expansion is at risk." "So you're going?" I didn't say that. You didn't say you weren't. She set down her fork. How long? A week. Maybe 2. 2 weeks. Her voice went flat. Right before our son is born. The due date isn't for 10 weeks. Babies don't follow schedules, James. Unlike board meetings. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. This is different. This is about saving everything I've built. Everything you've built. She stood abruptly. What about what we've built? What about the last 3 days? What about the promises you made in that hospital bed? This is temporary. Once I fix this, there's always something to fix. The words exploded out of her. Always another crisis, another deal, another emergency that's more important than us. That's not fair. This is my company, my responsibility. And we're what? Your hobby. She pressed both hands to her belly. Your son is what? A side project you'll get to when the markets close. You're being dramatic. The words hung in the air like poison. Lily's face went white, then red, then something beyond anger, something like grief. Dramatic, she repeated. Your pregnant wife, asking you to stay for the birth of your child, is being dramatic. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. She backed away from him. You meant exactly that. Because in your world, emotions are dramatic. Needs are dramatic. Love is dramatic. Lily, please. No. She held up a hand. I'm done. I'm done begging for scraps of your attention. I'm done competing with your empire. I'm done pretending that someday you'll choose us. I am choosing you. This trip is for you, for our future. This trip is for your ego. Her voice cracked. Your father died poor, so you'd rather die rich and alone than risk being like him. But you know what? He was there, James. Broke and struggling and there. You're just absent. Expensively absent. She turned toward the stairs, then stopped. When you get back from Tokyo, if you come back, we won't be here. What do you mean? I mean I'm done living in a mausoleum to your ambition. Tears streamed down her face. I'm taking our son somewhere he'll have a father who shows up. Even if that father isn't you. You can't just leave. Watch me. She climbed the stairs without looking back. Enjoy your empire, James. I hope it keeps you warm at night. The front door slammed 20 minutes later. Through the window, he watched her drive away in the Tesla, taillights disappearing into the darkness. James sat alone in the dining room, surrounded by the ruins of the dinner she'd made, the candles burning down to nothing. His phone buzzed with messages from Tokyo, from the board, from a world that needed him. But the only person he needed was gone. And for the first time in his life, James Whitmore understood what his father had felt, sitting at that kitchen table with his head in his hands. The difference was, Michael Whitmore had been poor through no choice of his own. James had chosen this poverty. He'd chosen it every day for 3 years. And now he was rich, successful, and completely alone. James sat in the empty dining room until the candles burned out, leaving him in darkness that matched the hollow ache in his chest. The house felt cavernous without Lily's presence, every room an echo chamber of his failures. His phone lit up the darkness. Steinberg again. The car's waiting, came the voice without preamble. Flight leaves in 2 hours. Yamamoto's agreed to meet tomorrow morning, but this is our last shot. James stared at the cold dinner, at the blue dress Lily had worn for him, at the life he'd built that was crumbling in real time. Richard. No second thoughts. This is what separates the players from the pretenders. Your father would understand. Would he? James closed his eyes and saw Michael Whitmore at that kitchen table, surrounded by bills he couldn't pay. But he also saw him at every school play, every parent conference, every moment that mattered. Present. Always present. The board's watching, James. This is about more than money now. This is about whether you have what it takes to lead. Leadership. Legacy. Everything he'd worked for balanced on a knife's edge. "I'll call you back," James said. "The plane. I'll call you back." He hung up and walked through his mansion. 7 bedrooms, infinity pool, tennis court. Everything his father never had. Everything that was supposed to mean something. In the nursery, moonlight painted the empty crib silver. The mobile of sterling stars hung motionless, waiting for a baby who might never sleep here. On the changing table sat the ultrasound photo, Michael's perfect profile captured in grainy black and white. His son, who would either know his father or know about him. James picked up the photo, studying the tiny nose that was definitely his, the mouth that was pure lily. In 10 weeks, maybe less, this little person would enter the world. Would James be in a boardroom in Tokyo, or would he be holding his son's hand? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Lily. I'm at my sister's. Don't call. I need time to think." At least she was safe. At least she wasn't driving angry through Los Angeles traffic with their son in her belly. Another buzz. "Harrison. Stock down another 5%. Boards in emergency session. You need to be on that plane." Then another from Yamamoto, Whitmore-san. "Honor demands resolution. Tomorrow we speak, or we speak no more." Honor. The word stuck in his throat. What honor was there in abandoning your pregnant wife? What legacy was worth a son who grew up without his father? James walked to his office, to the wall of awards and photos. 15 years of victories, of deals closed and empires built. In every photo, he stood alone or with business partners. Where were the pictures of Lily? Of moments that mattered more than money? He found one, buried behind a crystal award, their wedding day. Lily in white, radiant with joy and possibility. Him looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. When had he stopped looking at her that way? When had he started looking at everything else instead? His laptop sat open, emails flooding in from Tokyo. The Nakamura deal, the Singapore expansion, the board's ultimatum. His life's work hanging in the balance. But what was the point of building an empire if you ruled it alone? James thought about his father's funeral. A small service, poorly attended, but filled with stories. Construction workers who remembered Michael's kindness. Neighbors who talked about his Sunday morning chess games with his son. A life measured not in dollars but in moments. What stories would they tell at James's funeral? That he'd closed the Nakamura deal? That he'd built a fortune? That he'd died rich and alone? Or would there be a son who remembered bedtime stories? A wife who remembered sunset conversations? A family who knew they'd been chosen over profit? The choice crystallized with painful clarity. James opened his laptop and began typing. To the board of directors. Effective immediately, I am stepping down as CEO. Harrison Mitchell will assume interim leadership and has my full confidence to handle the Tokyo situation. I have spent 15 years building this company, but I have failed to build the life that gives it meaning. My father died poor but rich in the things that matter. I refuse to die rich but poor in everything that counts. The Nakamura deal, while significant, is not worth the cost of my family. No deal is. No amount of money can buy back the moments I've already lost, but I can choose not to lose any more. I will remain as a consultant through the transition, but my priorities have changed. My son will be born in 10 weeks, and I intend to be there. Not just for his birth, but for his life. Some of you will call this weakness. I call it the first strong decision I've made in years. Respectfully, James Whitmore. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. His phone exploded immediately. Steinberg, Harrison, board members, reporters who'd somehow already gotten wind of the story. James turned it off and threw it in a drawer. The silence that followed was deafening. No buzzing, no alerts, no urgent demands for his attention. Just quiet. Just space to breathe. For the first time in 15 years, James Whitmore was unemployed. And for the first time in 3 years, he felt free. He grabbed his keys and headed for the garage. Lily was at her sister's house in Santa Monica, a 40-minute drive through empty midnight streets. She'd said not to call, but she hadn't said not to come. Some conversations required presence, not phones. Some choices required showing up, not sending messages. As he backed out of the driveway, James caught sight of the house in his rearview mirror. 7 bedrooms, infinity pool, tennis court. Everything his father never had. Everything that meant nothing without the people you loved inside it. The Bentley purred through the night, carrying him toward the only deal that mattered now, winning back his family. Not with money or promises or grand gestures, but with the one thing he'd never offered before. Himself. The porch light was on at Kate's house, a small beacon in the Santa Monica darkness. James sat in the Bentley for a long moment, gathering courage he'd never needed in boardrooms. Through the window, he could see Lily on the couch, her sister beside her, both of them talking in the animated way women did when processing life's earthquakes. She looked beautiful even in crisis, hair pulled back, wearing one of his old Columbia t-shirts that stretched over her belly. Their son, restless in the late hour, made her shift and wince. James climbed out of the car and walked to the door, each step feeling like the most important negotiation of his life. He knocked softly. Kate answered, her expression shifting from surprise to protective anger. She said not to call. I didn't call. I came. James. Please. He looked past her to where Lily had frozen on the couch. 5 minutes. If she wants me to leave after that, I'll go. Kate looked back at her sister, who nodded almost imperceptibly. 5 minutes, Kate said, stepping aside. I'll be in the kitchen, listening. James entered the small living room, so different from their mansion, but warm in a way their house had never been. Lily didn't stand, just watched him with eyes that held equal parts hope and wariness. You should be on a plane, she said. I should be here. He sat carefully on the coffee table, facing her. I resigned. Her eyes widened. What? Sent the email an hour ago. Harrison's taking over. The board's probably having collective heart attacks, but that's not my problem anymore. James, you can't just. I can. I did. He pulled out his phone, showing her the sent email. 15 years of building an empire, and it took me until tonight to realize I was building a prison. Lily read the email, tears starting fresh. The Nakamura deal. Will happen or it won't. Without me. He reached for her hands, relief flooding through him when she didn't pull away. You know what I realized sitting in that empty house? My father wasn't poor because he lacked money. He was rich because he had us. I've been poor for years, and I didn't even know it. You love that company. I loved the idea of that company. What it represented, what it proved. He squeezed her fingers. But I love you more. I love him more. His hand moved to her belly. And love requires presence, not profit margins. Their son kicked against his palm, strong and insistent. He's been active all night, Lily whispered. I think he knows something's happening. Smart kid. Gets that from his mother. James felt tears threatening. Lily, I know I've broken promises before. I know words are cheap when actions have been expensive. But I'm asking you to let me prove it. Not with grand gestures or expensive gifts, but with showing up. Every day. For all of it. What about money? The house. Our life. We'll figure it out. I've got enough saved to last years, and I can consult, start something smaller. Something that doesn't require living in airports. He touched her cheek. I want to teach our son to fish. I want to read him bedtime stories with voices for all the characters. I want to watch sunsets with you and not check my phone once. Lily was crying openly now. I'm scared, James. Scared to believe this is real. Scared you'll wake up tomorrow and regret everything. I'm scared too, he admitted. Scared I've forgotten how to be a husband instead of a CEO. Scared I don't know how to be present instead of profitable. But I'm more scared of losing you. Of our son growing up thinking his father is a stranger who sends money. The board will try to change your mind. Let them try. You know what changed my mind? Sitting in that nursery, looking at his ultrasound, realizing I was about to become my father's opposite in all the wrong ways. Dad was there but broke. I was rich but absent. Our son deserves better. He deserves both. Lily shifted, making room on the couch. James moved beside her, pulling her close as their son moved between them. What do we do now? She asked. Now we go home. We stock that cabin in Tahoe like I promised. We learn to be a family instead of a business arrangement. He kissed her temple. And we wait for Michael to arrive. Michael. You said you wanted to name him after my father. The man who taught me how to love, even if it took me 20 years to remember the lesson. Michael James Whitmore, she said, testing the sound. I like it. Michael James Whitmore, who will know his father's voice from lullabies, not conference calls. They sat in comfortable silence, feeling their son move between them. Outside, Santa Monica slept, but inside this small living room, a family was being reborn. James. Lily's voice was soft. Yes. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for not giving up on me. He pulled back to look at her. I know I have a lot to prove. I know trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. But I'm here now. Really here. And I'm not going anywhere. Kate appeared in the doorway, car keys in hand. I'm driving you both home. Lily shouldn't be behind the wheel this emotional. And James, you look like you've been hit by a truck. The best kind of truck, James said, helping Lily to her feet. As they prepared to leave, James caught sight of himself in Kate's hallway mirror. Same face, same silver-threaded hair, but something fundamental had changed. The man looking back wasn't a millionaire CEO or a master of markets. He was just James. Husband to Lily. Father to Michael. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. More than enough. It felt like everything. 6 months later. The cabin in Tahoe smelled like pine and possibility. James sat on the dock, 6-month-old Michael sleeping against his chest, while Lily dozed in the Adirondack chair beside them. The lake stretched before them like glass, reflecting the sunset in shades of gold and pink. Look at that, little man, James whispered to his son. Your first Tahoe sunset. Many more to come. Michael stirred, tiny fist curling against his father's shirt. He had Lily's mouth but James's stubborn chin, and a way of looking at the world like he was taking notes for later. He's got your intensity, Lily murmured, eyes still closed. And your wisdom. Kid's been here 6 months and already knows what matters. James's phone sat silent on the table beside them. He'd learned to leave it there during sunset hours, a small ritual that had become sacred. The consulting work paid well enough, and the freedom to choose his projects, his hours, his presence, was worth more than any empire. Any regrets? Lily asked, opening her eyes to study his face. James looked at his son, at his wife, at the sunset painting their world in gold. Only that it took me so long to get here. Michael opened his eyes, dark like his mother's, curious like his father's, and James felt that familiar flutter of wonder. This tiny person who would know his father's voice, his presence, his love measured in moments instead of money. Tell him about the fish, Daddy, Lily said with a smile. Well, Michael, James began, settling into the story, your grandfather taught me that the best things in life require patience. And the richest man he ever knew was the one who had someone to watch sunsets with. As his voice carried across the water, James Whitmore, former millionaire, current father, forever changed, discovered that some stories were worth more than any deal he'd ever closed. And some empires were built not with money, but with moments like these. What would you choose if you had to pick between success and significance? How do you measure the wealth that truly matters? Share with us in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening to this amazing story. Make sure to subscribe for amazing untold stories I bring to this channel every day.